Hey gang, so what I want to talk to you today about is I call it pulling back the curtain, because you've seen some of the posts that I've done and you've seen some of the stuff that I've talked about in the past, and I really talk about how things in the invisible realm directly impact the visible realm. And I really want to break that down, because in the next few weeks I'm going to do several teachings that come alongside of that. But I want to set the stage for why I really believe that there are, and I'm doing this because I don't want any of this to sound super spooky or anything like this, but here's what I believe to be the truth. And I want to break it down for you so you can get your arms around it. I really believe that there are invisible forces. That sounds spooky or anything, but there are invisible forces that want access to your creative talent, because your talent, you were wired and you were designed to traffic in the unseen realm. I'll say it again. You were born, you were designed, you were wired to traffic, to interact, to move back and forth in the unseen realm. And there's power behind that, because the unseen affects the seen. The hidden, invisible, above the natural or supernatural realm directly impacts this natural realm, this real world that we live in. And with you being a talented, creative person, you are a bridge to that. You're directly involved with all of that. And that is why the enemy of mankind, that's why those invisible forces either want to do one of two things to you, because of your creative ability, your talent, and because of your access to that unseen realm. The enemy wants to either have access and influence your creativity, to use it for his own goals and strategy, or he wants to make your creativity ineffective. Whether you put it on the back burner, you put it on the shelf, you don't touch it anymore, you feel like you can't do it. He either wants you to give it to him so he can work through you, create through you, sing through you, write through you, draw through you, design through you, any of that. Or if you're not going to give it over to him, he wants to stop you from doing any of that at all yourself. So does that make sense? Am I kind of going on the right road? And post comments here, because I want to see. I always like to make sure that we are on the same page here. So now I want to pause for a second, because a lot of what I'm sharing with you is from my book I wrote not too long ago. It is called God's 7 Keys for Creative People. And especially when I'm talking about pulling back the curtain, this comes from page 14 in the book, and that's where I really set the stage for everything else that I talk about with those 7 keys. I always like to make sure that I set the stage, really just talk about the foundation of all of this. And that foundation is that you are important, especially because of your creative talent and your God-given gifts that God placed inside of you. That ability to write, that ability to rap, that ability to draw, that ability to dance, that ability to use media. Whatever creative talent and ability that you have, now whether you feel that you are good at it or not, acknowledge the fact that you got something. You got something that not everybody else has. You got a certain degree of talent and creativity that is a gift from God to you for others. Now, let that soak in. Soaked in? All right, good. Now, here's the next step, or the next case behind this is, because of this creative talent and ability that you have, like I mentioned before, the enemy wants to either have access to it himself, or he wants to stop you from using it. And that's what this whole thing is all about, because there is an invisible realm that you traffic in, mostly because of your imagination. I mean, you think about it. We got a lot of writers that I connect with. I love you guys. You have opened me up and opened my eyes up to a whole new world, taking my visual stuff that I've always done for years and you guys have helped usher me down that road of writing. And let's just use you guys as an example. What the enemy wants to do is to make sure that either your writings, whatever you write, whatever you do, copywriting, whatever you do, he wants to make sure that he influences it. Or if you refuse to give it over to him, that he wants to put doubt in your mind. He wants to make sure that you do not fulfill your God-given tasks and purpose. But let's go back with that. Because before you write anything, before you dance, before you create a song or sing a song, before you draw anything or design anything, before any creative actually does any of that stuff in the visible realm, where it can be taken in and heard or seen or recited or whatever, it all takes place where first? In here. Now some say in here, your heart, but it takes place on the inside. It takes place first in your imagination. Now, do this with me. Do this with me. Sit back. Close your eyes. Now, I want you to picture a dog. You see that dog? You see that dog, whether he's black and white or whatever, you see that dog. Now, open your eyes. Is that dog real? No, he's not running around here, not running around you, but you saw him, right? Where did you see him? How do you explain that? Okay, that's that unseen realm. That's that invisible realm. Now, the spiritual world, like I said, I don't want things to sound so spooky when we talk about the spiritual realm, but I really want to kind of break it down where it's something that you can get your arms around, because when you can get your arms around it, then you have a better understanding of how you fit in. So, that invisible realm, like we just did that example of just imagining a dog, that dog, we saw it. We saw it in our mind's eye or in our imagination. So it was invisible, but it's not in the visible realm. It was super above the natural. No power to any of that yet or anything like that, but it was outside of the natural realm because it was in our imagination, still in here, and not yet brought into the natural realm, where we're where we're either able to draw what we saw in our imagination about that dog, or if you wrote a story about that dog, or if you had a song about that dog, or you were doing some media and you incorporated that dog and his barking, whatever it was, it started out first with something that was invisible in the invisible realm, before it entered into the natural realm or the visible realm. Think about this too. Emotions. When you are disappointed, when you are angry, when you are heartbroken, any of those emotions, you can actually sit on a train, a plane, a bus, or even a passenger seat of a car and not say a word for 30 minutes, but you can be playing back those things that either made you happy or sad or angry or disappointed. You're playing those things back. Now, you're not saying a word to anyone. And you got your poker face on, so nobody has an idea that anything's going on. But you have real feelings that are taking place on the inside of you. But what do those look like? Does anybody see them? You could sit there for 30 minutes. Nobody knows anything's going on. Again, that's an example of that unseen realm. That stuff is very, very real, but it's just not seen. That's when I'm talking about that unseen world, the imagination, thoughts, emotions. In fact, again, in my book on page 14, I talk about pulling back the curtain. And when I break it down, pulling back the curtain would show us that the spirit realm is vastly made up of thoughts, ideas. Think about memories. Memories are in there as well too. And feelings. Those are things that are real things, and they are not seen things, but at the same time, they really do exist, especially in an unseen realm, usually in your heart, in your mind, or a combination of all of those. And then they take life into the natural realm, because the thoughts on not page 15, but the next page, I talk about how those thoughts lead to actions. In fact, where do I have it here? Yes, it's in the book here where we talk about how a thought played back over and over leads to an action. An action that's acted out over and over and over leads to a habit, good or bad. A habit played out over and over leads to a lifestyle. But it all, let's rewind it all back. It all goes back to that invisible thought and that thing that's in the imagination, that thing that goes on in here, but has not yet been ushered into the real world or the seen realm, but it takes place in the unseen realm. Now, who impacts those thoughts, those emotions, those ideas, those memories? What song? I mean, you play a song, one of your favorite songs from a few years back. You hear that song, you can remember exactly where you were, or these feelings start coming back to you from those things that that song reminds you of, or people that the song reminds you of. There's power to that. And the enemy knows it. And that's why the enemy wants to either have access to your songwriting ability, to your music playing ability, to your vocal ability, or anything related to that, so that he can either control it, or if you won't give it to him, he wants to make sure that you don't use it. Same thing with the rest of us creatives, whether it's something that we design, something that we write, something that we draw, something that we put together in media, anything that has to do with creativity, anything that has to do with taking something from the imagination and bringing it out into thoughts, and bringing it out from the inside into this real, ushering it into the real scene world, where it can lead to an action, and the action played over and over again can lead to a habit, and played out over and over again can influence a lifestyle. That's what makes up culture. And so I said all that to say that I'm setting the stage to let you really know how important, how significant, not better than anything or anybody else, but how significant your talent is. Once you pay attention to your talent, pay attention to those things, whether you feel that you're good at it or not. Really want to weigh this thing out. You were given a God-given talent for a reason. Your God-given talent is important, whether you have mastered it or not. Now, here's the thing that hinges upon that. Sometimes I really want you to think about, if you know that you had a certain talent, but you left it on the back burner, and you know that at some point in time you were good at that thing, or at some point in time you had dreams and aspirations about that ability, but you just never did pursue it, and you got it sitting on the shelf collecting dust, whatever that creative talent and ability is, think about what goes on. There's two invisible forces. Now, God himself, bigger than, of course, the enemy. But God gave you that, that ability for a particular reason, with a plan in mind, because he wanted to affect and impact and empower people through that talent and gift that you have, because that gift you have has some power behind it. The enemy knows that exact same thing, and if you didn't give that talent over to him, then what he wants to do is make sure that it is paralyzed. It is sitting on the shelf. You have the ability to pick that thing back up, but I really want you to weigh out. The first step is to really just acknowledge and realize how important that gift and talent is. One last thing I want to talk about that I mentioned in the book is that your gift and your talent, your ability it's like fire. It can be either used to warm up and actually power an entire city, or if it's used in the wrong way, it can destroy an entire city. And if you don't give it over to the enemy, then he wants to make sure, like I've said throughout this entire chat that I had with you, that he wants to make sure that you do not use it at all. So stay tuned for the next thing I talk about with this, but if you don't have it already, I want you to get my book, because I can talk about this in detail. It is called God's 7 Keys for Creative People, and you can find it on Amazon or just go to the website. But most importantly, pray and ask God to reveal to you what he wants you to do with that gift that he gave you, because God does not do anything just because. He has a purpose and a plan behind all of those things, and he gave you that talent for a reason. So we'll see you next time.